There is a photograph, or rather an engraving made from life, of a huge bearded man addressing a crowd in a Swiss beer hall. His arms are thrown wide. His mouth is open on some enormous vowel. The people around him are leaning in the way iron filings lean toward a magnet, and one of them, a young Russian baron who would later write down what he saw, remembered that the words themselves contained almost nothing worth keeping. There were more exclamations than ideas in them, and yet, he confessed, the whole room rose up at the end and carried the speaker out on their shoulders, out into the street, drunk on a feeling none of them could afterward name. The man was Mikhail Bakunin, and that scene is the truest portrait of him we possess. A human bonfire, warming and terrifying by turns, throwing far more light than heat and far more heat than sense. This is a book about that bonfire. It is also, I should say at once, a book that disagrees with him. I want to be honest about this from the first page, because the honesty is the whole point. There are two easy ways to write about a revolutionary, and both of them are lies. The first is to write hagiography, to polish the man into a saint of liberation and file away the parts that cut. The second is to write prosecution, to line up his failures and his cruelties and his crackpot schemes and invite the reader to feel superior to a corpse. I have tried to do neither. What I have tried to do instead is harder and, I hope, kinder, to love the man honestly enough to tell him he was wrong. For Bakunin was wrong. He was wrong in the most fundamental way a passionate and generous person can be wrong, which is to say he was wrong about the means and right about almost everything else. He looked at the world of the 19th century, a world of famished peasants and factory children, of secret police and hanging judges, of churches that blessed the whip and states that fattened on the poor, and he was filled with a holy rage that anyone with a heart should share. His diagnosis of human suffering was frequently brilliant. His prescription was poison. He believed the way to end violence was to answer it with a greater violence, that the way to abolish tyranny was to tear the whole edifice down in one glorious convulsion, and that from the smoking rubble a free society would rise on its own, like grass through pavement. He called the urge to destroy a creative urge. He spent his life proving that it is not. That is the argument this book will make, patiently and, I hope, without preaching. Every barricade Bakunin ever climbed led him to a prison cell. Every uprising he helped ignite was crushed, and the crushing left the ordinary people worse off than before, more watched, more frightened, more tightly chained. The secret society he built to destroy all authority handed dictatorial powers to a central committee, and the central committee was, of course, him. The one time he attached himself to a man of pure action unclouded by scruple, a young zealot named Sergei Nechayev, who believed that any lie and any betrayal were permitted in the service of the cause. That man used and blackmailed and very nearly ruined him. The pattern repeats so exactly across 62 years that it stops looking like bad luck and starts looking like a law of nature. Force, applied to the problem of oppression, does not dissolve oppression. It launders it. It hands it a new uniform and a cleaner conscience and sends it back to work. I did not arrive at this conviction by reading Bakunin. I arrived at it by living, and by looking at the record of the last 200 years with clear eyes. Consider a simple, brutal question, and refuse to let romance answer it. Which of the great revolutions actually made the daily life of ordinary people better in the span of a generation? Not better in the songs, not better in the founding myths, not better for the handful who rose to the top of the new order, better in the kitchen, the field, the sick-bed, the schoolroom, for the nameless many. The French Revolution gave the world the Terror, and then Napoleon, and then, after 2 decades of continental war and a mountain of the dead, restored the very monarchy it had beheaded. The Russian Revolution promised bread and peace and land, and delivered famine, civil war,